animal and then killing an animal a little more humane, you're still killing an animal.
Each screen is showing something different, but what you're seeing here are boys in the egg industry who will never lay eggs.
Oh,
so
those are chicks?
Those are day-old chicks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is what happens to all day-old boy chicks in the egg industry.
Right.
Yeah. Can you imagine why we might do that to day-old boy chicks in the egg industry?
Like for factory efficiency, that's horrible.
You're pretty much hitting the nail on the head. Boys don't lay eggs. Yeah. So they won't make a profit for the egg industry. We throw them in there. This is what happens to the girls. The girls put on this conveyor belt, and this machine holds their head in place, and they'll have their beaks cut off by that machine with no anesthetic.
Question that I always ask.
Can you imagine why we might do that to the girls? It's not much better.
What do they not know? I have no idea.
Right. It's a little harder to figure out. It's because all chickens in the egg industry, whether they're cage-free, pasture-raised, organic, all of that, we keep them in such stressful conditions where they can't perch, they can't graze, that they'll just start to peck at each other out of desperation. So we cut their beaks off so that when they start to do that, they won't damage the product. Basically, yeah.
How many? Like, what is the percentage of meat companies that utilize the tactics?
Factory farming is 98% of the animal agriculture industry.
How long have you been vegan?
I've been vegan now for 3 years.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What?
I was vegetarian for like 2 years before that, and then vegan for 3 years.
What would you say was your like pivotal moment?
The pivotal moment for me was seeing that movie Cowspiracy.
Really?
So for me, when I decided to be vegan, and I did it overnight, like there was no, a lot of people find it helpful to do it in steps. For me, I was just like, boom, I'm vegan now. And that's what worked for me. Because then there were no questions. It was like, I'm hungry, what should I do? Well, I know what I'm not gonna do. But I did it after seeing Cowspiracy. So it wasn't about the animals. I just learned about the way my choices were impacting the environment. And I was like, my actions do not align with my morals at all. Like, and that's the thing, like when we pay people to do this stuff to animals, our actions are completely misaligned with our own morals, right? Like we're paying people to do things we would never do. We don't even want to look at it. And we're happily paying people to do it for us 3 times a day. It's really ludicrous if you think about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, you don't get to see any of this stuff when you like buy meat.
Why do you think that is?
Like the people who make their livelihoods on this, the last thing they want is people like knowing the processes.
It's absolutely right. In fact, to film this, if you're caught filming this, you can be tried as a terrorist. It's called the ad-gag laws. It's laws put in place to protect these industries. From what? From us knowing the truth. Can you imagine like you go to a pumpkin patch in the fall, right? Take as many pictures as you want.
Yeah.
Right? No one's like telling you not to take pictures at the apple orchard, right? But as soon as you show what happens in a slaughterhouse or on a dairy farm, you're a terrorist.
Can you go to prison?
People that have gone to prison. In fact, on that card, you should watch that first speech. It's called Best Speech You'll Ever Hear. He was one of the earliest animal rights activists. So within like the animal rights scene, he's sort of like a legend. And he went to maximum security prison because he went to a fur farm and freed a bunch of minks. He went to maximum minks. He went to maximum security prison. And it's because he cost them a bunch of money. And it's all money, it's all politics.
How do we like fix this? Like,
yeah, I think that it's a good question. The only reason this happens is because we pay for it to happen. So this is supply and demand. The more demand we create for these items, the more they supply it. And the inverse is also true. Right. The less of these we demand, the less they create.
When do you think?
It's like the more people buy iPhones, the more iPhones they're going to make.
Of course.
And now we view animals as iPhones. We view them as commodities, right? How much can we profit from them? How delicious can we make them? How fat can we make them for our taste buds?
When will the day come where there's no more demand for agriculture?
That's totally up to us. I hope sooner rather than later.
People would rather be undisturbed and continue living with this as opposed to like
as opposed to acknowledging
Yeah.
that we treat the most innocent, vulnerable animals on this planet worse than we treat the most violent offenders of our own species. Like if you think about the rapists, the child molesters, we treat animals worse than them.
just like
They have done nothing
Yeah.
to us, right? They did nothing other than be born with what, like wings instead of arms, and, you know, or gills instead of lungs, or whatever it is, you know. But we know they suffer. We know they enjoy the sunshine. We know they have communities. We know they're maternal. It's like, what more do we need to know?
I feel enlightened, Ben. I feel very enlightened.
So what happens now?
I'm gonna make a change, man. I'm seriously gonna consider it and like
Yeah.
make it happen. No, for real.
That's amazing to hear. It's amazing to hear because your change means change for so many. You know, it really does.
Yeah.
There's a reason we don't know these things.
Those aren't facts that concern your average American.
Right. Right. And if it did concern them, then they'd start to lose money.
Wow, it really is all about money at the end of the day.
That's 100% what it's about. And that's not, I mean, no one in these videos, they aren't bad people. Right? Like the
they're
farmer,
just doing their job.
Right. The farmer raising the cow, the truck driver driving animals to the slaughterhouse, these people, those aren't bad people. They're doing what we pay them to do. And no one grows up wanting to work at a slaughterhouse. That's not anybody's dream. Right? This is
Those
actually,
jobs are dangerous too, right?
it's actually also a human rights issue.
Like incredibly dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous. Slaughterhouse workers
Like they have to wear armor and stuff.
Slaughterhouse workers have some of the highest rates of PTSD and suicide rates. A lot of them are illegal immigrants, which means that they aren't protected by any sort of like labor laws, because if they were to report their working conditions or whatever, they'd just be deported.
Yeah.
So if we lived in a world where from day one we were taught that a cat and a dog and a chicken and a pig and a cow, all their lives have value in the way that ours have value, then how could we ever live in a world with racism, with sexism, with anti-Semitism, with homophobia, where we're distinguishing these characteristics, finding reasons to hate each other?
Yeah, it's all moot.
If we were taught from the earliest stage that none of these differences matter, right? We're taught to accept people for their differences, but we're feeding ourselves 3 times a day with cruelty and persecution and exploitation and violence and suffering and murder. It's a total contradiction. We feed ourselves with it.
I'm gonna make a change, man. Seriously.
I'm so glad to hear that.
You're good at
I'm
your
so glad
job.
to hear that. I'm so glad.